Welcome all who live in the shadows, who have come to hear my tales. Tonight we travel to the land of Mardi Gras, New Orleans, Louisiana. Our story tonight is about a great sacrifice and the price that was paid. If you enjoy my content, I ask you to subscribe, like, ring the bell overhead, so that way you know my latest videos drop on the weekend. Now on to our tale. Soulless, voodoo priest in the graveyard. New Orleans, Louisiana is a large mixing pot of culture. French, English, voodoo, and powerful magics can be found in this town. Some people disappear, gone like a shadow in the night. Their bodies found floating in the Mississippi River. The city is full of tales of the macabre and otherworldly monsters. Coffin women, the rougarou, spirits, even vampires. There was once a young man who chose to follow the path of Baron Samedi. For those who do not know, he is a loup that protects graveyards, escorts the dead to the afterlife, or spare them, return them to the land of the living. He is a powerful being, often wearing a top hat and tuxedo. He walks with a cane, and a large dog often accompanies him. The name of the priest is not important. It had become a memory. The years have gone past, and those that knew the name are no longer here to speak it. What is important was that he had a small sister that he loved more than life itself. The priest and his sister near the Mississippi River when she was attacked. The American alligator is a formidable foe, as they too quickly discovered. The creature was large. It grabbed his sister's leg as she walked past the river and dragged her back into the waters below. The priest grabbed hold of his sister, hanging on for dear life. That's when the alligator did a death roll, tearing the leg off the screaming girl. The priest dragged his bleeding sister far from the river, praying to the Baron to spare her life. With tears in his eyes, he closed them, concentrating on a connection he had with the Baron. That's when he had a quick vision. It was a man in a cemetery. He wore a top hat and long black coat. She was driven to the nearest hospital but bled along the way. He knelt by her bed, tears in his eyes. He had lost the only person he had in this world, and now he was alone. But his faith would not betray him, at least, not yet. A voice came into his mind, asking, "What price will you pay for what you ask of me?" He questioned the voice, forgetting earlier how he had prayed by the river. The voice asked again, "You wish a great favor. What will you give me in return?" The priest replied, "Anything, my Baron." Moments later, the voice told the priest, "When she returns to you, come to the tomb you saw before. It is marked with a holy symbol, the one you see now. If you do not appear by tomorrow night, your gift will be taken away. You will be punished severely for wasting my time." With that, the voice left. With her good arm, the sister shook her brother, wiping away his tears. The two hugged, relieved as she returned to the land of the living. He spent that day with his sister, savoring her return and talking to the doctors about the miracle they had just witnessed. Then there was the matter of her missing leg, how insurance would cover most of the cost. As much as he wanted to stay, he knew the night he had an appointment to keep. And so at that night, he found himself waiting in the cemetery, in the tomb from his vision. It was the beginning of November that year, and still technically part of Samhain. November the 1st. The next day was devoted to Baron Samedi. It was his day. An icy wind blew through the graveyard, and the priest noticed all the insects had gone quiet. He shivered as if he had stepped foot in a snowstorm. He blew into the air and could see the fog coming from his breath. He heard the noise and turned around, but instead of seeing a man, he saw the black dog. It came from the shadows of the dark, red eyes fixed on the priest. The creature was larger than any dog he had ever seen or heard of, and had the blackest fur. His paws were the size of the priest's hand. It simply stood there, not growling, but watching and waiting, as if the prey would flee so the hunt may begin. From the same shadow walked a tall man, dressed in formal wear, his top hat white, his tuxedo and coat black, and the cane was also pearly white. But his face was a different story. It was painted as a white skull, with a lit cigar in his mouth. Anyone from New Orleans would know this being, especially his own priest. Before him stood the Lou, Baron Samedi, hellhound, sitting at his side. The priest knelt, for he had no offering to make. That's when the Baron spoke, telling the priest to rise. You asked me a great favor, for your sister was ready to travel beyond last night. I heard your plea and told you the price would be steep. You have been loyal, but the afterlife is owed a soul. Will you take your sister's place? Will you say farewell to the light of the day? The priest nodded in agreement, and only wished that he could tell his sister goodbye. The Baron agreed that he could visit her after sundown, but he would be different. The Baron explained further about the price to be paid. My faithful one, you will no longer fear death. You will be without a soul, for that is a price that must be paid. But the benefits will outweigh the price. Weapons will not harm you. Only special ones. You will never die of old age. Your strength and speed will be uncalculable. But there's a downside too. You can never walk in direct sunlight. You must feed every night. You will do my bidding and take the life of your victims through their blood. The choice is over. This is a price you are to pay. Before he could reply, the dog was upon him, biting into his neck. Slicing the main artery. The Baron leaned over the man, cut his wrist, and let some of his blood drip into the wound, with promises that it will be over quickly. An hour passed by, and the priest that fell on the ground rose, an undead being. He felt like something vital was missing, feeling empty inside. He rose to meet his Lord. Walked or staggered toward a tomb, grabbing the chain on the mausoleum door to help hold him up from falling. But super strength is, well, surprising at first. The chain snapped as a former priest fell flat on his face. His tongue felt the sharp teeth near the front of his mouth. The Baron was now laughing and dancing around the confused man. Dancing a tune that no one but the Baron himself could hear. The vampire's mouth began to water as his thirst began to consume every thought that he had. Enraged and feeling that his God betrayed him, he lunged at the Baron. Although faster than a mortal, the new vamp was no match for a god. The Baron caught him with one hand, lifting him high into the air. And that's when he spoke to the vampire. You try my patience. I grant you immortality. And you try to attack and feed from me. The thirst you have now will consume your every thought, your action, even against your will. until you drain the life of a victim. You are cursed to only take the life of your own kind, human. During the day, you will be weak, and you will only find peace when you drink human blood. With those words spoken, the Lewin canine was gone. The vamp was left with only his hunger and the dark night. He left the cemetery, throat dry, looking for a meal. That's when he caught the scent of a woman and man. The man was abusive and striking the woman in a nearby alleyway. There was no struggle. In seconds, the vampire that never took a life before ripped through the man, teeth finding the warm liquid he craved. It was messy. Blood was everywhere. He stopped and looked over at the screaming woman. It was the last thing she ever saw. In seconds he had her, biting the second neck of the night. She struggled, but soon stopped screaming as he continued to feed until she was dry. Then he sucked on that lifeless neck until his mind came back to him. Now he remembered the deal made. Words he did not understand, but agreed to. For years he had worshipped this being, only to be cursed into a creature of the night. That's when he remembered his sister lying in a hospital bed. The bloodlust was satisfied for now. It should be safe to visit her. He was fast, covering blocks in seconds. He found the hospital and discovered it was locked. He stretched his hand and realized he could scale the wall easily. He did not know how. Perhaps it was the last promise of his God. But he found her room. Window opened. He called to her, waking her from slumber. Surprised, but glad to see him, She told him to come inside, out of the cold night air. The explanation was short. He could not frighten his sister. She was the only thing he cared about in this world, after all. He promised her he would return at night, but she must have the window open. He did not explain much. Only the price for her return to life had been paid, and that she would go on and live a happy and normal life. That was a long time ago, and he does not remember much. After a few centuries, that happens. He never saw the Baron again. He did not pray to him anymore. The god had betrayed him and turned him into the murderous beast he is today. And after 200 years, if you ever find yourself alone in an alleyway, you may just run into a vampire that was once a man of a god. Good luck. If you enjoyed that, and I hope you did, then I'm glad. I've never been in New Orleans, but I've often heard it's crowded, but full of voodoo. Come back next week as we return to our travels across this great country of ours. We find ourselves in the state of Maine. And let's find out what kind of cryptid, supernatural, or spirit that hides in that state. Remember, beware of those that hide in the Shadowland.